You've probably heard this line on social media from someone who sounded very sure of themselves. America is a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And they see it like it's some gotcha or witty response to a question no one even asked, or like that kid from school who started all of his responses by saying, well, actually, you know the one. That kid was me. But anyway, are these people right? Have we been fed a lie our entire lives and the United States isn't a democracy? Was Reagan wrong when he said, we know what real democracy constitutes, we understand its implications? Or was Lincoln when he said that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth? Here's where the lines get crossed. The claim that America is a constitutional republic, not a democracy, is half right, but it's also half wrong. And it all rests on treating republic and democracy as opposites when one is just one type of the other. It's like saying, that's not a car, it's a 2013 Honda Civic. Welcome to Transatlantic Brief, where we break down the issues, institutions, or even the hot takes you see on social media that affect the transatlantic world in a way that's analytical, pragmatic, and accessible, so you don't need a PhD in political science or international relations to understand. So, the claim that the US is a constitutional republic and not a democracy isn't a modern invention. It has roots going back almost 250 years. In Federalist Number 10, James Madison, author of the Constitution and future President of the United States, drew a real distinction. He used democracy specifically to mean direct democracy, or citizens voting on laws themselves, in person, the way ancient Athens sometimes did. He used republic to mean a system where citizens elect representatives to do that voting for them. And Madison actually preferred the republic, because he thought direct democracy was prone to what he called passions of the moment, or majorities trampling minorities without any filter in between, which is ironic considering that Madison himself owned enslaved people. But that's a real and serious argument, at least it was in 1787. You see, at this point, the world was full of monarchies, with only a handful of republics like Switzerland or the Venetian and later the Dutch republics. The new United States was still finding its footing in this brave new world, and Madison didn't have much to go with or to compare it to. So the founders built in some checks to keep we the people from running away with everything, like the Electoral College and an independent judiciary. Even though pretty much all the states award their electoral votes by whoever got the most votes, and the judiciary is selected by people who won their elections, these are just one step removed from democracy. But Madison was using democracy as he understood it in 1787. It was a very small definition, limited to only direct democracy or a form of government where eligible, usually male citizens, at least back then, voted directly on every law. To Madison, the only options were monarchy, which they just got rid of, or a republic, but the world kept spinning and things evolved. Modern political science doesn't use democracy to mean only direct democracy, where every citizen votes on the laws. Outside of a few Swiss cantons or towns in New England, direct democracy hasn't existed anywhere for a couple of thousand years, because it's unwieldy and would grind a country of 350 million to a halt. Today, we use democracy to mean a system where political power derives from the consent of the governed, expressed through free and fair elections. Webster's dictionary entry for democracy has a few definitions, but let's look at 1A. Quote, a form of government in which the people elect representatives to make decisions, policy, laws, etc., according to law. Or, as Lincoln so eloquently put it at Gettysburg, of the people, by the people, for the people. And let's flip ahead a few pages to republic. Quote, a form of government in which the power belongs to a body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by the leaders and representatives elected by those citizens to govern according to law. Under these definitions, a republic is just a subtype of democracy, not its opposite. Yes, our form of government is a republic because we have a body of citizens entitled to vote on laws, that's Congress, but it's democratic because we, the people, vote on those elected leaders. Also, a republic is a representative government where the head of state is a hereditary monarch. That's it. That's the actual technical definition. Republic versus monarchy, not republic versus democracy. And while having elected representatives may make you a republic on paper, democracy is a totally different animal that's based on if those elections are free and fair. Because you can be a republic, but not a democracy. The most famous undemocratic constitutional republic was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or the USSR. Constitution? Check. Leaders elected to pass laws on the citizens' behalf? Also check. Democracy? No, because those elections weren't free nor fair, since only communists were allowed to appear on the ballot in the first place. Today, just look at the People's Republic of China, or North Korea, aka the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And since they have elections, and their head of state isn't officially hereditary, they're republics, even though North Korea is really just an absolute monarchy, regardless of the name. In fact, according to the Economist Intelligence Unit, there are a total of 60 countries that are authoritarian, and about 50 of them are considered undemocratic republics. But if you want to compare the United States government to governments and regimes in the Central African Republic or Iran, you do you, I guess. And you can be democratic as well as a monarchy. Look at Canada, the UK, Sweden, or Japan. They have hereditary heads of state, but the actual law-making power resides in elected members of the Houses of Commons, Swedish Riksdag, or the Japanese Diet. So republic and democracy aren't opposites. A country can be a democratic republic or a democratic monarchy, but not a democracy isn't what separates them. And that's not some aha, gotcha loophole in the American system. The filibuster or electoral college may be anti-democratic, but those don't negate the fact that senators are directly elected by the people, or the electoral college awards their state's electors the candidate that won their state's popular vote, a result that is also aligned with the popular vote 55 out of 60 times. That's about 92%. And I have a hunch on why this picks up and comes in waves across social media every few months. It's usually when an unpopular politician gets even more unpopular. So their supporters copy and paste this as a way of saying, polls be damned, he doesn't have to do what you want. And while that's apparently true, the president can do whatever he wants, at least in theory there's some limit, but check out this video for more on that. But this is just an attempt to argue, in bad faith, that democratic principles like one person, one vote don't apply here, or that obviously undemocratic, anti-American ideas or policies are fine. It's all noise, and it's just wrong. But here's the version you'll probably actually run into. Someone points out that the loser of the popular vote has won the presidency, and the reply comes back instantly, doesn't matter, we're a republic, not a democracy. That reply isn't explaining the Electoral College. It's using a vocabulary trick to end the conversation before the actual argument, usually because they don't have an argument to back them up. You could defend the Electoral College on its actual merits. I'm not going to, but you could. What you can't do is just use "we're a republic" to skip having it. That's just lazy. And it also conveniently ignores that there's no federal law forcing the states to award its electors anyway. Just look at Maine or Nebraska for exceptions to the rule. So, in the end, where are we? I mean, if you can't even define what sort of government you have, what do you even stand for? The United States is a republic, meaning no hereditary monarch, no matter how bad you might want to be one. The United States is a republic the same way as France, Germany, India, or Brazil, and no serious person in any of those countries thinks they're anything besides a full-on democracy. We also have leaders elected on our behalf to make the laws, but since those leaders are elected, America is also a representative democracy, meaning political power flows from elections rather than birthright or force. Republic and democracy are not mutually exclusive terms. They're two words describing the same system from two different angles. One is the mechanism of how the laws are passed, and the other is how we select the people to pass those laws in the first place. But we still don't have mob rule, and allowing anything just because it's popular has another term, populism. But populism also ignores every check against it, every law, every cultural norm that kept the policy from being passed in the first place. But no one today defines democracy as everyone voting on everything all the time. That's ridiculous. People vote. That's democracy. End of story. The people saying otherwise are just arguing in bad faith, trying to get rage clicks or trying to justify unpopular laws forced through by unpopular politicians, as if the people won't eventually get a say on if they should keep their jobs in November. Hope that clears things up. See you next time.